Welcome to another week, another episode of Quaggling Sand, the podcast about whatever we're working on. Once again today, solo. One of these days I'll convince someone to join me and discuss what they're working on, their projects, their hackathon participations, their ideation. But for now, it's just me. It is Monday. As I said, August 2nd, I literally just moments ago checked to see that Clark County, where I am coming to you from, has hit 16% test positivity. So all the more reason to, even though I am fully vaccinated, and I hope you are as well, but all the more reason to stay in and make my sprints work. And unfortunately, last week I didn't get as much done as I wanted to. Well, let me rephrase that. I didn't get as much done on my sprint goals as I wanted to. Certainly, I have no shortage of things to do. The to-do list always seems to grow in opposing directions, which I'm sure anyone has that problem. I'm not crying, but it's more than a little frustrating sometimes. Anyway, so I've added a couple things in the show notes about other stuff going on. In fact, I should do it today. I need to register a registered agent because I'm moving. I want to have a stable address, but a registered agent so that when I submit the paperwork for the Casa Nunzia Foundation for the state to form the nonprofit, there's a place for the paperwork to go. The official place, statutory address, registered agent, all that stuff. So you can hear that my voice is, as always, I don't think you've ever heard my normal voice. Allergies aplenty. I'm just drinking water, which I don't know if that's a good or bad idea. Tea, some hot tea would have been better. Anyway, so I think everything's squared away. So today I need to get the paperwork actually moving to form the nonprofit. And there will be more about that. And in fact, there will almost certainly be a specific Casa Nunzia podcast. And during that, we can go over the history, the origin story, why it's called that, where the ideas came from, where we hope to go. But very briefly, because we're all on the same page here as far as doing creative things. The basic idea is that assistive technologies as they exist today are quite often developed in a vacuum or without talking to the users. Who among us on the development side has not heard someone say, why would someone want to do that? Whatever it is. And so co-creation, assistive technologies, getting ideas into designs, into production, into home, where people should feel safe, secure, and dignified, and private, and all that. And we want to make that happen. We want to bring together the people who need the high-tech gadgetry that we're all so excited about. Smart speaker. Do you really need one? Well, maybe if you can't use your hands, arms, maybe voice-activated systems are essential parts of your day-to-day, and merely having it answer to Ziggy, which I have not configured on anything here, luckily. I guess that's gee whiz cool, but doesn't make life better, mostly. So Casa Nunzia will focus on that. And so we're in the administrative phase, and the goal is to have some maybe one or two or more demo collaborations over the next 4 months, 3 months, to not to show an actual product output, but the workflow And we can talk about it in January here in Las Vegas, if and when that big show actually happens. You know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you're lucky. Anyway, yeah, my voice is really struggling today. So, sorry. So this week's sprint will recover from last week's distractions. I'm really on the fence. I want to create a starter. Like, I've got Terraform infrastructure, which they keep revving, and and so I need to fiddle with that a little bit. But I really want as much automation as possible. That's the name of the game in the 21st century, which I wholeheartedly support. So I already have Terraform configured to build an EC2 based, cloud. So the idea would be build up the network, and the DynamoDB for Terraform can use that to track configuration changes. So it configures DNS, EC2, basic network, the VPC, subnets, and multiple account communications as needed. So you can split up functions across different AWS accounts. And I'm talking about AWS here mostly. I haven't really fiddled with the other of the big three, Google and Microsoft. So so I have all that. So, and then the presumption is then I install a web browser. A web server, so that I can visit my basic website with any web browser and see a single page, right? That's the goal of the starter. But really, I think the best way to go would be to build a Lambda function on AWS, or a serverless handler to just take the basic web traffic. Because I really, not essential, but I think it will be essential to be able to deploy a Lambda configuration, or basically serverless infrastructure components. And there's a common way of thinking now, which is you should start using, fill in the blank now rather than later. And as I point out in my show notes also, as I've been revisiting some code, and I'm going to get to the FTYP story, by the way, today. So I revisit some code that has its origins there. I have a GitHub private repo that goes back. I mean, I added a remote, and I wasn't using GitHub in 2012, but I have my code that was in my local Git repo. So the commits go back to 2012 or so, and not everything was as it is today. But some of the basic ideas are, and the way to get to those ideas, I think, is more modern. So we'll get to that. That's my that will lead into FTYP, or maybe it'll be a part of it. So anyway, I was looking at the best way to implement schema.org, metadata inclusion. The knowledge graph is the new, what would you call it? It's Open Graph from Facebook, or driven by Facebook, was a cool idea. And I think, unfortunately, that Facebook has kind of limited its functionality too much, mostly on the API side. That is to say, they made it more difficult to publish or create objects in the Open Graph space, I guess you could say. So one of the things I always thought was sort of interesting was Facebook being what it is, with events. You can very easily post, hey, I'm having an event. I'm having a farmer's market, a party, whatever. You post it on Facebook. You could private or public invites. And so to be able to create events for mobile vendors and their business related events would have been interesting, because Facebook was for a time. Twitter was the thing. Then Facebook became the thing. Now it's Instagram. Maybe others, but a lot of people use Instagram for their mobile vendor promotion. If you're a food truck owner, you got to have an Instagram page or a profile, and you post a picture and you create a story and all this stuff. So that's nice. Unfortunately, you can't really embed the same sort of information in an Instagram post that you can in an open graph or schema.org compliant or aligned, I guess, page or document. So I think the utility of Instagram goes away. I mean, it's visually interesting. You lose control over the structure, that is an event date, a start time, a specific location, a venue, and all that. You trade that for a picture, and you also lose the ability to control when that's displayed. And so I don't think Instagram is a great idea, but it is what it's a component in the machinery of promoting your business, product, service, etc. So, but the Open Graph API, the submission API, got limited years ago because people were abusing it, and that's unfortunate. So maybe if you're a big player, maybe if you're I can't remember what's the name of it. There are several services that basically manage your social media for you. I'm going to guess that they are allowed to post events using a fully capable API for Facebook. And now that Instagram is part of Facebook, they're part of the Instagram. Instagram is part of the Facebook API infrastructure. So there's a basic API and a business API. So automating posting of Instagram content becomes a little bit more complicated. Not much, but I mean, yeah. So all this stuff is interesting, but not necessarily used by people because of it's variously difficult or more expensive, or there's no return on investment. But the thing that I always thought was good, well, the nice thing about the Open Graph is that it enables what Facebook was calling frictionless sharing. And so a lot of websites, excuse me, a little water. A lot of websites adopted this notion, so they support Open Graph tags, meta tags in the document head that point to a title and an image and a description, and that allows Facebook or many other websites at this point, when you share a link or share this, add this, if you're using any of those services, it gives the destination a summary. It's not unlike the RSS notion, right? Like you have some control now over what a subscriber to your page, or in this case a share of the page, what they see, where they link, etc. Right. So the Open Graph infrastructure enables a rich collection of types. So you could have an Open Graph event with a venue and a destination. A start time, end time, all this useful stuff, but they've kind of disabled the ability to create events externally, which makes it like an additional task. And so I'll get to my design idea back from 2012 and how that's evolved because of the evolution of these platforms. But anyway, so the idea would be to take advantage of the structured data that's out there. So Open Graph to some extent, schema.org or schema.org to as a minimum, and everything becomes shareable. And as long as you have all this metadata in there, ideally, the simplified, dare I say, frictionless sharing of anything can integrate into the internet in ways that people have come to expect rather than doing what, say, Instagram did, which, as Jamie Zwinski has written, they broke the internet, right? It's you can't really link and you can't do a lot of things with Instagram. So it's really the whole Facebook business model is to get people to come to you and then stay there. And the internet is really built on sharing and people going where they, or being sent, being referred to through links to where other information is. Because, or I find this fascinating in particular because when you share, I discovered a while ago that Facebook has, for example, a way to update a share so that if your event is canceled, for example, you've shared an event, but the event is maybe Eventbrite or what else? Some event site. I don't know. So you've shared an event, but maybe you've just shared a page that describes an event. So on Facebook, it's just merely an HTML, web page. So if you cancel the event or something has changed, maybe the headline or the title of the event is like Thursday Pet Rally or First Friday, whatever. So there's information in the title and the description that has now been saved or cached. Even the image, the Open Graph image gets cached by Facebook. So if you need to change that, maybe you want to put a red slash and you want to change the title to canceled or canceled due to weather, whatever. You can put that in the description. But unless you tell Facebook to update, it doesn't necessarily go and refetch that content. So I always thought that was a problem because this was a real problem when for a while, and I don't know if it's died down because people eventually caught on, not because of me, but I definitely would point it out whenever I saw it. Or maybe it's because I haven't used Facebook all summer. I haven't seen it. But for a long time, there was this craze about posting missing child alerts on Facebook. And the alerts would be probably some monetized website. So by clicking through to them, they're advertising to you. It didn't seem to be totally on the up and up, so to speak. But if you clicked through the URL that was shared on Facebook, and if you actually read the content of that page, say it was a missing child, child was found, and you look at, they were found 6 months ago, or whatever, and whether it was good or bad news, the fact is this is no longer worth sharing. You're not going to help anybody by sharing this, and you're certainly not helping people to recognize a legitimate piece of news if you share old news, expired news, or even more interesting to me, if I share a piece of news that is no longer valid, child found 6 months ago. If I share that, did I read it? Is that my form of assisting the effort? Is blindly sharing content? If you don't click on it, you're certainly not going to go find more information about who to go looking for or how to help. So to me, it's the whole disingenuous machinery is only amplified by this whole sharing scheme, blindly sharing without knowing what you're sharing, and then the inability to update that means you are now amplifying. I'm not going to say misinformation, but old information, right? So spend the time on an issue that's relevant today and then remove it or update it when it is resolved or no longer relevant, fixed, whatever. So I'm not totally impressed with the Facebook implementation of their own Open Graph scheme, but the fact is there is an API for making Facebook refetch a page, and I have not tried it. I came across it a while ago. It's one of those things like, okay, it's good that they have this. I haven't even checked their current API. I'm not a fan of Facebook, and I'm really not looking forward to diving into the Facebook API again, but I'll get to why I should in the FTYP section. But basically, Facebook has a method to tell it to, refetch the content of a particular URL. What I don't know, I don't know how this would work if people have like reshare to share, or I don't know how deep the updates apply. So that might be something to experiment with. But the ability to share things, and the fact of the matter is, when there's a picture, when it's an open graph or a Twitter card, or generally a visually appealing item that you have shared, you're more likely to get a response, some sort of interaction. So it's kind of essential. Posting just the classic blue underlined text link doesn't really get much attention anymore. So the ability to share rich content like that is sort of the minimum at this point. And then taking advantage of schema.org, there's a lot of, and strangely not enough, but there's a lot of object types just defined in schema.org's dictionary, vocabulary. And so strangely no mobile vendors, but there are vendors and there are locations and things. So the components are there. So a mobile vendor doesn't really have, if it's the food truck or the tent, or, usually they don't have a business location that is not an event, right? In some cases they have a storefront, but in many cases that is not the case. So that seems to be like a hole in the schema.org object space. So that will be something to explore soon. But generally speaking, Google makes use of the schema.org knowledge graph connections, and by loading up your content with with JSON, LD, or metadata embedded in HTML or RDFA, you can provide machine readable information in a human readable HTML page. And while some people are really diving into, bringing RSS up to date for the new podcasting generation and et cetera, to me, I think there's a richer vocabulary and infrastructure in place for machine readable, human readable content. So my take is RSS should support for many things, but just the lack of control you have over how things are displayed and features and whatnot, it's good for minimal, basically what's in the open graph. The extensibility of RSS has been leveraged heavily, but who knows what a particular RSS client is going to do with the extensions, right? The Apple extensions for podcasts, or Feedly has some extensions for displaying a thumb image and maybe some other stuff. So really, you now have a schema.org vocabulary, you have an open graph vocabulary, you have a RSS and extensions vocabulary, and I don't even know what Atom is doing. So there's a lot of, do they overlap? I hope so. But to me, I've described this before. RSS seems like sitemap plus some links. I mean, some metadata, right? So here's the most recent, N, I think the usual number is 20. Here's the most recent 20 updated things. Maybe you can break it down to comments and posts and podcasts, whatever. So you can do it per section. Great. An RSS client could very easily use the RSS feed to get the basics. Maybe it's just a copy of the Open Graph metadata. Maybe it's schema.org content, like simplified, like the overlapping, right? So the item content would be like an image, a link, a basic description, right? As soon as you start sticking in C data and you're trying to make rich content display where it wasn't really intended, it just seems to be a headache to me. But if you can point to the authoritative, canonical content, which itself can be as rich as you want, can contain links and metadata and open graph and schema and whatever. So to me, I think there has to be a reckoning at some point. Anyway, so that's my political belief there, I suppose. So anyway, let's before my voice totally gives out, let's do a little throwback to 2012-ish. I had a lot of bartender friends. I still do, I think, sort of. I haven't really been outside much, so I assume they're still around. So when I lived in Sunnyvale, California, in Silicon Valley, I had a BlackBerry, I think, at the time, and I found that a lot of bartenders had BlackBerries that I encountered, and Facebook was just becoming a thing. There was no Facebook pages. So my question was, do you want to be Facebook friends with all of your customers? And usually that was no. But how do you reach out to people and tell them where you're working, when you're working, shifts change, all that. So I started my first legitimate mobile application. My first mobile application that I was playing around with, I've told the story. It was Nookie Map. So that's a story for another time. But my first sort of foray into, at the time, hyper-local or local business, local everything was the thing. So I called it RegularDB, inspired by IMDb. And the notion was, if you are a bartender, or more generically, someone in the service industry, somebody with a clientele, and you're moving around. Yeah, I'm foreshadowing there a little bit. So if you are, the case that sort of inspired this was, a friend of mine was filling in for a Wednesday night bartender. Wednesday was basically the only night she really worked. So she had her Wednesday following, and she was out on maternity leave. So the person that was filling in was normally working on some other night, and she also worked at a different bar. So her Wednesday crowd was not hers, so to speak. And so it was like, she actually said, I need to get more regulars. And I said, interesting. That's an interesting conundrum. So I started sort of like, how would that work? And again, before Facebook pages, there was Twitter, but there wasn't really like a way to connect with your clientele that was easy. So I built this thing, which was very basic, but it was, add on a profile picture. Oh, by the way, so the night this happened, there was 2 or 3 people, and they were wandering out. They were kind of the end of the crowd. And I lived walking distance from this place, so I would usually hang out at close just as have a person around when the doors are locked up, so that I'll walk out to the car and so on. So all that, fairly typical. So she said, have a good night. I work here Wednesday. And the guy's like, what's your name again? And I work Wednesdays, and I also am at this other bar. So she kind of did a last minute follow me pitch. So I said, it'd be interesting if you're in the service industry, and in that scenario, this person, especially if they have a phone on them with a camera, and that was the new thing, right? Every phone had a camera all of a sudden. You should be able to show them a BlackBerry screen, which was sort of small, or more. And the very least, it should have whatever name you'd like to put on there, and a small picture, and a QR code, and a basic information about, the date, the time, so that tomorrow or whenever the person could look and say, oh, okay, I met that bartender and it was last night, and so on. And the content behind that QR code, or at the person's profile page, would be basically their schedule. Like, here's where I'm working, or I'm out for 2 weeks for whatever, or I've started a new place, or there's a promotion going on. And the idea was local businesses would pay to advertise. In my travels, I would ask people, would you go I mean, it's basically a Cheers commercial. Would you go to your regular spot if you knew your favorite so and so was working? Oh yeah, I would go to that place because of that person. Right? So yeah, so the entire monetization scheme was based on local or hyper local advertising, right? If you knew customers were going to go to that bar or that restaurant or that nail salon because of this association, would you be willing to or interested in advertising based on that locality? And I found that to be true like for farmers markets, right? When a farmers market would appear every week on Murphy Avenue in downtown Sunnyvale, there was a correlation between the farmers market being there and business at the retail stores that were on the street, right? So locality, nothing new there. So very interesting. And I got a lot of positive reaction. In fact, I used to ask smaller bars, and even some small restaurants, including fast food restaurants, which was odd. You know, why do people call? What's the reason people call your phone number? And it was something like 75%, give or take, was who's working, right? So that tackles that. And then it would give some stats to the employee. They kind of get a following, and then you could use that as part of your resume if you're changing to a new job or adding a shift somewhere or whatever, right? So I got nothing but positivity, except for one thing. It was not essential. That is to say, as one, I can't remember who said it best. I think it might have been a bartender, but it might have been someone like at a, I mean, like I said, nail salon, hair salon, anybody that has a clientele, but you are not necessarily on a regular schedule, right? So people use Instagram for that now. They used to use Facebook. How do you engage a clientele, but keep it on the professional side, right? So you're not Facebook friends, you're not, whatever. So, but I got, people will find me, or they do come here. So it's not like an imperative. So bartenders in particular were like, people find me. So then the question would be, would they use it? Do they think this is a good idea until the rubber meets the road? And then, I got to update my schedule and I got to do all this stuff. And they're working and they're getting tips anyway. So I kind of got a little dip. I mean, I had a demo and I would show people, and they seemed to, they got it. There was no like, I don't get it. Why am I advertising myself at this bar when I do that anyway. Right. So somebody once said, this is a stalker's dream. And I said, a stalker already knows your schedule. This is not going to add anything. That's a sad fact, but separate problem. So I can't remember. It was 2000. What year was it? 2000. Well, let's say it was 2010, 12, somewhere in there. I was working at Jawbone, I think. Yeah, I think I was working at Jawbone and in Sunnyvale. And I went to the credit union for whatever reason. And the person there said, hey, do you ever go to food truck events? And I said, no. Famous last words. And she said, my friends have just launched this food truck. It's called Big Shrimpin'. And they hang out at this place called Edgewood Eats in Palo Alto. It's right down the street. So check it out. And, word of mouth advertising, that always works. So I did. I went to Edgewood Eats probably the next time it was around. I think it was like every Monday or something. I think it was every Monday. So go to Edgewood Eats, check out all the food trucks. And I started talking to the food truck people there, and they said, we advertise on Twitter. And I think there was a Facebook page and a lot of word of mouth, and they get mentioned in the local news every once in a while. But it was a very communal event. So it wasn't intended to be thousands and thousands of people. It was just people that could walk over it was at the edge of a residential area. So that was very nice. But in talking to the owners, and that's the nice part, right? So here's where I transition into this mode, is because rather than talking to employees, which are fine, I was talking to business owners. And they have a vested interest in engaging their customers. And if they're moving around, they have to engage them wherever they happen to be, right? You can't just say, hey, come on down to your favorite kimchi taco restaurant. That's Koji, what is it? Koji Barbecue, I think it is, in LA, what kind of started all this. You can't tell people to just come to the same place as you were yesterday, because that's not always the case. In fact, it often is not. So how do you engage those customers when they want to find you, but there's no tool around? So now, instead of a bartender saying, well, people come here and it's in a bar, the bar is not moving anywhere. Here you have an owner who wants to pay their bills and who is already using all the tools that were available at the time. And everybody was coming out with a food truck app every day. So Food Trucks In and Roaming Hunger were two of the big ones, but there were many more. And over the next 2 years or so, the food truck owners would always tell me, oh, there's a person here, they're showing off some app that they wrote. And the big thing was they would scrape your Twitter feed and display your schedule on a web page. And from a customer standpoint, that was all you needed. That's what else is there? And they would often get it wrong. They would misread things. They would send people at the wrong time, and people would get upset with the owner. That happened one time. Hya, which was a Korean barbecue food truck. The owner's son said, people were sending me emails or however they were contacting her. Like they thought I was on Angel Island, I think, in San Francisco. They thought I was there at 2 a.m. because the stupid Roaming Hunger told them I was. So when you as an owner had no control over the way people were promoting you, because they were scraping social media and you didn't have any direct connection, and eventually Roaming Hunger would allow you, or their business model was to have owners register with them, and that they would provide booking services, right? So they would get you business. So you could sign up with them, but you could also not be signed up with them. And they would claim that we work with these trucks, these vendors. And I like to use the word vendor because not everything is a truck. And I mean, trucks and trailers are similar, but sometimes it's a cart, sometimes it's a tent, sometimes it's a booth. It could be a boat or an airplane for all I know. So vendors, mobile vendors. So they sometimes would just be a broker of business, and they would hide the vendor information, right? So, I want to work with this food truck that I found on Roaming Hunger for a lunch or whatever. And Roaming Hunger would take a piece of the money, right? They would take their cut. So, and that's fine. That's business. That's how that works. But to me, it seemed weird that the vendors were handing over so much control to people that they had no relationship with, and kind of hoping for the best. So in my travels, I would I would write some code. I had my demos. I would post them. So I'd work in the coffee shop on Murphy during the day, and then I would pack up my stuff, and I would go to a food truck event. Sometimes I would work on a food truck, so I worked on several food trucks. And I've also worked in tent vendor scenarios, although not nearly as much. But I, firsthand, talk to customers, talk to the owners. And so I sort of developed an, on the ground experience about what people were really looking for and how this would work. So the FTYP project, which started out as Food Truck YP, but is now multifaceted, basically took everything I learned from RegularDB, which was inspired by IMDb, take an employee working at a place and their schedule. And then if I click on the place, I should be able to see what other employees are and what their schedules are. And then if I click on an employee and they work at two different places, well, let me see who's at that other place, right? So just like movies and cast and crew, interconnect vendor and venue and schedule. I'm sorry, employee in that case. So the Food Truck YP started out as, how can I connect the owners and the vendor and then their customers and the venues and the hosts. And so the Y plexus, the connection of all these things, the network, became the goal was how can I build a tool that works better than Twitter? And so my journey began, and I was showing everybody here's, would this work, would that work? And there are tons and tons of things in there that probably too many. So I had the engineer's conundrum, too many features without any restraint and without a proper release schedule. It was sort of like, I guess if I never release this. So I reached a point where, in association with we formed an owners association, because my take was, you guys are getting kind of taken advantage of by not working together in a cooperative competition scheme, right? So the voice of one is never heard, and you're paying outlandish fees and being taken advantage of. So the Bay Area Mobile Food Vendors Association was formed with vast assistance from the Southern California Mobile Food Vendors Association. And if you are following food trucks in Southern California, you've heard about them and its founder, and he has gone on to found the National Food Truck Association. And he actually has a platform called Best Food Trucks. It used to be called Lot Mom. And it's fairly traditional. I want to book a food truck for lunch at my work or whatever. And so a lot of these platforms are are monetizing the client connection, right? Like, oh, you're busy working on your food truck or working in your tent or booth and trying to figure out where a farmer's market or a carnival or whatever fundraising event. So you're on the move developing your business. So let us help you by taking some of your money, some of your very small margins, and book customers for you. So, okay, that's one way to do it. So my notion was, rather than trying to take money and doing the legwork of trying to get customers, what I should do, and you'll see mobile vendors, especially food trucks, they will promote, or they used to, I don't see it so much anymore, which is probably a good thing. They used to promote their presence on Roaming Hunger or a couple other ones. But say Roaming Hunger, hey, find us on Roaming Hunger. Well, you're handing all of your clients over to a place that will charge you money for putting together business. And there are some free tiers of Roaming Hunger. So I'm not going to say that they take money on every turn, but the fact is, an entity that is trying to profit on your business, and I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying that has to be understood. When that's happening, and then when you are also getting booked at places where you are required to pay to be there to conduct your business. My favorite are the food truck events, where the food truck event charges money of the food trucks to be at their event. And I said, well, what if there were no food trucks here? Would you have an event? No. So they're enabling your event and you're charging them for the privilege, and then they have to market your event. So it seems like a really imbalanced way of conducting business. So the FTYP, or Food Truck YP initially, the FTYP notion was create a tool platform for mobile vendors, food trucks initially, where they own their presence, right? So they have to sign up. There's no, not scraping things. They put in their schedule. They maintain their, whatever features, whatever we're open, we're closed, we're going to be here tomorrow, we're going to be there next week. And then automate publishing of that content to social media, make everything shareable. And then if you have an event, well, okay, I'll get to that in a second. So the idea was create a tool. So I guess today now, Linktree, Beacon, I'm using bio.link, which was created by the Buy Me a Coffee people. It's interesting. It's just it's an easy to maintain link tree or a link site. So here, start here, and you can find this page and that blog and my Instagram and my Flickr and all that. So here it'd be, I'm a mobile vendor, and here's a picture of my thing, my truck, my tent. Here's my contact information. By the way, don't hide anything. So this is a tool built for the vendors, not for me to make money from, right? So I'm not interested in hiding your phone number, I'm not going to take your customer and try to collect money from them first. None of that. So build this engagement platform and make everything shareable, right? So if somebody wants to share, hey, I found this cool food truck, here's their page, everything's shareable. It's not going to cost anything. There's no fees. My model is $10 a month, right? Basically what you would pay someone to tweet for you for an hour. Minimum wage being what it is or what it will be or whatever. So I said, is it worth $10 a month? Yeah. Okay. $10 a month. So my goal was to create a tool that would be so useful that everyone would pay $10 a month, because why not? That's almost free. You make it back by selling one extra dish to one extra customer. Or maybe two, depending on your margins. Anyway, so I was talking to one of the food truck owners of House of Siam on Wheels in a parking lot for a company, a business park lunch, and he said, "So this thing you're making, do I have to enter my schedule myself?" And I said, "Yeah, but you'll know it's correct, right? You have control." He says, "So I keep having to enter it into all these different. Everybody's writing these apps and websites and whatever, and I have to keep entering my schedule and this and that and this and that." So the light bulb went off, and I said, "Yeah, why? That doesn't work." So that became another can of worms, which has brought us to the current era. But the notion was, instead of creating this portal that's like, hey, I'm a food truck, or hey, I'm a tent, a cart, a booth, and then leaving it there, the other side of the coin, which none of these applications that were doing this gathered, but my interactions with the Owners Association side of things was half of the effort or more is finding your next business, right? So telling customers where you are today and tomorrow is essential, but booking your business for tomorrow and next week is the other half of that coin, right? You have to have this machine turning all the time. Customers today, business tomorrow. And so it didn't seem to me that there was a place or a way to do that easily. Certainly you can cobble together something with Google Calendars, and you can make a contact form, maybe a Google document, Google Forms, whatever they call it. Hey, you want us to, book us for your next thing. And that's fine. If I want to book 25 food trucks for a big giant event in 3 months, I got to figure out 25 different ways to book food trucks, or I'll just call Roaming Hunger. And now as an owner, I have to cede control of my booking and a percentage of my very small margin to this company that happens to have a website that customers will find. So you're kind of beholden to these other services. So I said, what if there was a platform purpose-built for booking, promoting, and measuring mobile vendor business and engaging with customers and promoting upcoming, current. So basically all of the things that have to happen in order to enable mobile vending business. And so my long winding journey interrupted with fires and violent people and a good interruption working for Intel and traveling around so much, and then the layoffs and time wasted in Las Vegas on other projects. So yeah, why am I not doing this? And so we formed the Nevada Mobile Vendors Association, which was the goal was a statewide nonprofit business league to promote business and elevate the marketplace and all kinds of good things. And so behind that would be the FTYP mobile vendor platform. So that would enable people to book business directly. So the notion is, I want to create this event. Oh, the last time I visited any mobile vendors at the farmer's market or First Friday or whatever, I noticed that they were on the FTYP.co platform. I don't go to that website yet, but it used to be something there, but now it's parked, I think. So how do I, let's see, I know they were on, so let me find their card or a picture or whatever, find them on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, however it is. And then, they're at something, I love cotton candy.ftyp.co. Okay, so let me go there. I want to book this food truck, but I can create a new event. Okay, let me sign up with this thing. It's free to me to sign up. Okay, I don't have to pay anything, and I can book food trucks myself. Okay, I want to book. I see there's a bunch of, here were the food trucks that were at that event I was at 2 weeks ago. Oh, yeah, okay, I like those 3. I want to create an event for 2 months from now, and I want to invite those 3, right? So the workflow becomes very similar to the new age of tickets, plane tickets, when Sabre made available through portals like Travelocity way back when, and now, and the Expedia? Is that it? Expedia.com? All these various travel websites, you basically had direct access to flights and hotels and rental cars, all these services that were integrated into a customer experience that you could control yourself. So no longer are you contacting a travel agent for simple travel, you can just book it yourself. So if you mix the features of IMDb, everything's cross-linked, and you mix the notion now that I can book my own travel, I don't need to go through some service and pay extra fees. I can have my own hands on the wheel. If I enable that, then the mobile vendors have more direct control over their customer engagements, and they can develop business for each other. So that cooperative competition, right? If I find one food truck at an event, at a lunch, I'm at work, I go out and have lunch, and this was pretty good. How do I find you guys? Are you going to be here tomorrow? That's a common question. Are you going to be here next week? Like, well, you can find us on Facebook. That was always the thing. Find us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. But then you've handed homework over to your customer. They want to find you, and you've said, well, yeah, here, you have to go through, hopefully you'll see us on Instagram, or, you've given them homework. So the notion would be, here we have our profile here is on this platform. You can find us where we are next. You can also book us through this. You can find us at other events, and you can find other vendors, because as it turns out, while you can certainly hand a customer over to your competition, right? You can say, there's another food truck that will be here tomorrow, and great, that it helps your competitor, so to speak. But in elevating the marketplace by making it easier to find more of this portable variety, you are part of a marketplace that can be enlarged, right? So the more positive experiences people have, the easier it is to find and find the vendors you've already discovered, and to discover new ones. The larger the marketplace becomes, and the more lucrative and more flexible, right? So a problem in Vegas in particular, as I've seen it, is very, very limited individual service. It's not nearly so common to find 1 or 2 food trucks or more mobile vendors in, serving lunch in office parks or smaller venues. So they tend to go for the weekend, rally, the first Friday, the 10 food trucks at this place, or the 8 at a park on that place, or so they're always clustered together, and they are usually paying fees, and they're usually promoting the event, and not so much vice versa. So to me, this always seemed lopsided and or asymmetric. So the notion would be, if everybody is promoting using this platform, and everybody can discover where mobile vendors are, not only today, but in the future, and even more importantly, in the past. What was that food truck I found 3 weeks ago at that one thing we were at, right? That's happened. I have many stories many stories. So to be able to be found not only today, but in the past, and then ideally in the future, and to develop business based on that. So all of this stuff purpose built and at a flat rate that is more than fair, it's just all winning, right? So now the question is, will this ever see the light of day? Pardon me. Oh, it's a little bit better. Nope, not better. So then you take all that and you make everything shareable, everything cross-linked, everything is, flat rate. So if you subtract $10, everything's free, right? All kinds of features that are, again, built on my interaction with customers and what would be my customers, the mobile vendors and hosts and city government, other local government, state, federal, no, city and county, and then business owners. And there's this notion that that food trucks, especially, but any mobile vendors steal business away from brick and mortar businesses. But the question is, do they activate the area? How do you take advantage of that? So there's a lot of potential for data collection, analysis, for market analytics, for making a case for regulation changes. And oftentimes the case for that is not available because there is no data that people take. So therefore you get brick and mortar business owners paying property taxes saying, nope, they're gonna hurt our business, and they don't pay property taxes, therefore they don't count. They do pay sales tax and they do activate areas. So there's the notion of collecting some data and figuring out where business works and where it doesn't, and optimizing that for the mobile vendors. And there's a whole collection of things that I think is left on the table. And nowadays with ghost kitchens and with delivery, touchless delivery, with people not wanting to sit in restaurants, there's after the pandemic really does wind down, which has not happened yet, unfortunately. But as there is a return to mobile business, as people can say, I don't necessarily want to go to the crowds to sit in a restaurant, but I wouldn't mind going in my neighborhood to a mobile vendor gathering, a farmer's market, or a Thursday night in the parking lot of whichever local park, whatever, depending on your local regulations. It'd be fun to go and grab some food from the local businesses, support local business. If it's a farmer's market, there might be some retail, some various non-food products. So there are opportunities to take advantage of once again of hyperlocal commerce that's mobile, that can adapt crowd sizes, number of vendors, time and place, adjusting for weather conditions. So all these things are potential upsides to having some infrastructure in place that doesn't rob, in my opinion, from the vendors themselves. So rather than building a business on their backs, it is providing a step stool at a flat and very reasonable rate on which they might build their business up and help each other in doing so. So that is the FTYP story, and it's kind of in a nutshell. A working demo would be easier to show. And then something that I think is sort of innovative, and I'm kind of settling on how best to do this. I mentioned that it was the origins were in Food Truck YP, the Food Truck Y-plexus, and the logo I created, which I'm not an artist, shows the vendor in the middle of a Y, which is the host, organizers, and customers. So it's connecting those components of a business, right? Somebody has to want a food truck. Somebody has to be able to host them, So somebody has to organize an event, somebody has to host it, and then the customers have to show up, right? So rather than me and my business being in the center of that, it's the vendor, right? So I said, wait. Actually, I was at Maker Faire, New York, many years ago, and probably 5 years ago, I think, or just about 5. And the person that was working for Best Beverage Catering, who had coordinated the event, I was talking to her about what I was working on, and she said, "Oh, it's too bad you only do food trucks." And I said, what do you mean? She says, well, there's all the vendors here. It was essentially a farmer's market style, multiple vehicle, trucks, trailers, carts, booths, tents, no airplanes or boats that I know of. So she said, yeah, too bad you don't do all of them. And another light bulb went off, just like the schedule one years before. And so my engineering hat is always on too tight. And I said, oh, I could do that. And so I generalized a lot of things, and now there's food truck, food tent, fair tent, fair with an E. So it could be products and services. It could be food and drink. It could be any other things. It could be on wheels or not. And so by having portals for each of those general styles of mobile vending, I now create sort of region agnostic, arguably monetizable through advertising, access to the same data that any of the mobile vendors could use on their own websites, that people could share. How many times have you read a newspaper article or a free paper mention of hey, there's going to be a food truck event down, new food truck gathering spot in downtown Austin or in Wichita or Research Triangle, pick a place. And then it's one newspaper article. They list a couple of vendors who will probably be there, but might not. And then they don't provide any links because half the time mobile vendors don't have a concrete link to go to, a website that works, a current schedule. And sometimes the names are misspelled, and sometimes they're just wrong. Everything's wrong. And then there's no more articles, so that you don't really have a reference to the event. The event might have a website or might not, or maybe they're using a Facebook page, and maybe if you're not logged in, you don't. So there's just a whole mess of things left on the table. So by making everything shareable, no passwords, no paying for anything, no signing up. Yes, you sign up if you're creating events. But if I want to go find where food trucks are, I'm visiting Research Triangle, and I'm a food truck fan, and I want to see where food trucks are here. I don't have to sign up for WTF, where's the food truck. I don't have to deal with all the confusing mess that is roaming hunger. Food trucks in used to be better. I think they're a little bit off now. I don't have to worry about, half the food trucks on here don't exist anymore. They're closed. They don't keep their list current. So this is a direct, built for vendors first platform to build their business. So they have a responsibility to keep their profiles current, to tell people to use this. It's $10 and get your business and get more business and get the correct link in a newspaper or a blog or review, and so on and so on. So all this stuff, again, built on a long time of thinking, talking to everybody. I've talked to food truck owners in different countries. So too much thought has gone into this and far too much distraction. But this is where some focus would be good. So on that note, I thank you for listening to this podcast again. It's I thought I was going to come in under an hour, especially with this voice, but you get me talking about food trucks, it's all over. Speaking of self-promotion, I have a page on Buy Me a Coffee, which I mentioned now and then. The reason I created it is to have an out-of-band profile to promote, to link, to list links and things. So personal blog site, professional portfolio site, things like this. The links to all of these things and more, and to my current set of podcasts, including this one, and to the show notes, newsletters, and all that. All those are there, regardless of the presence or absence of the other types of websites and things. So when the Quaggling Sand website launches, that will be linked directly. The Anchor and Substack and review links will stay there, but they'll be sort of second tier. So all these things, to have one place that's there regardless, it was the goal. And conveniently enough, you can also contribute to the caffeine supply if you desire, but you are not obligated. So a couple of people have thrown in some dollars, and I have applied that to, believe it or not, coffee. So this, I think today my I'm trying some medium roast Death Wish. I've had, I don't even know how many pounds of dark roast Death Wish coffee, which is a Robusta Arabica mix blend for higher caffeine. And I actually like it. It's the hype is fine, but it actually is quite tasty for basic, a strong coffee. I enjoy the taste. I think I like making it in an AeroPress usually, as opposed to like pour over or French press or something. But yeah, so I got some medium roast, and then I got some Lavazza espresso beans. So there you go. So that money actually goes towards coffee. If anybody wants to contribute to the caffeine supply, that is where that goes. And I make a couple of posts there now and then about coffee stuff. And there will be, ideally, if sprinting does work out in the midst of my purging and packing, some project links to update on there. So thanks for listening to the rambling about FTYP. It's been a passion project with all of the engineering and none of the project management and marketing and sales. And so it has tons of cool features that are never completely implemented and have not been launched in quite a long time. Let's change that. Thanks for listening. And join me on this show one of these days. Join at quaglingsand.com, Twitter. What else do you want? Come on down. Tell me what you're working on. Thanks.